Okay, welcome to part 4. What we've done so far is we have got an intro to root servers. We've seen how we configure them in IXP Manager. We've actually deployed a root server. And now what we're going to look at in this is we're going to install a looking glass and just see the effective community filtering on the prefixes through the looking glass. So let me just see my presentation here. So looking glasses and community filtering, and this is exactly this is what we've done before. So we've just finished our IPv6 instance, right? For our looking glass, what we did some time ago, or what I did at a hackathon once upon a time, was built this thing called Birdseye. Birdseye is a simple, secure microservice for querying Bird. The point of Birdseye was to allow us to query a Bird instance over HTTP and get the data back as JSON. My hope for this package, even though it's been around for quite a while now, was that, it's been around for maybe 5+ years. My hope was that it would become irrelevant fairly fast, in that, Bird and OpenBGP and the rest of them would maybe hopefully settle on some form of similar API that we could query them directly, rather than having to do it through a microservice like this. This has been designed to be very secure, so there's lots of caching going on. There's limits on the amount of prefixes it can do, or that it will return. A lot of that stuff is configurable as well. What I'm going to do is, on my installation, I'm really going to just go through these instructions here. So what we need to do is we need to install some PHP libraries. So this is particularly for Ubuntu 2004, which is what I'm working on. So here I am on my root server. Okay, install these guys, let those run through. The next step would be to get the binary. So go into serve. So nothing in here at the moment. So what I want to do is get the latest release. So up in my releases, 13 releases here. I'm just going to grab the latest tar. So just copy that link. Let me just go back down here then to my instructions. So it's a wget. I'm keen to actually go through these instructions myself, because quite often people come to the mailing list with problems with the root server. So I just want to, as much as anything else, is demonstrate that it does work when you follow the instructions. And let's see if we run into any problems. I'm just going to create a symbolic link, Birdseye, just so that I can access it under /serve/Birdseye. And if I ever updated the version and stuff, I'm going to make my web server, for example, point here. So even if I ever upgrade it, the /serve/Birdseye link will always be available. So just pop into the directory here. And one of the things, sorry, again, I'm sort of a bit of muscle memory here. What I'm doing here is this. Okay. The next thing we need is a web server. So we're going to use Lighttpd because it's a nice, very small, compact web server that we can stick on our root server. So apt install Lighttpd. Need to enable, once it finishes here, need to enable fast CGI, and I need to enable fast CGI PHP. Now, one of the things that people seem to have a huge problem with quite often is configuring Lighttpd. So I'm going to show you here. If I just take the sample file, copy the raw link as given here. If I go into etc Lighttpd, so there's one already there. I don't care what's in that. I'm just going to overwrite it with the one that I'm suggesting. Now I'm going to edit it. I don't actually need to make any changes to this, but the one change I'm going to make, just to try and highlight the fact that you should be security conscious, and your Lighttpd should only listen on your internal management interface. And for me, that's this here. Okay, if I just do an IP address, you can see I've got my loopback, I've got my internal management address, and then I've got my production peering IP address on a third interface. So all I did there was I'm just configuring Lighttpd to only listen to the external address. So now we start it. Is it running? Looks not good. Oh, it does. Looks good. There we go. Okay, excellent. Now, I need to configure Birdseye. There's a few ways of doing this, and it's all documented here. The easiest way to get this working is to use a host name. I'm trying to think yeah, okay. Okay. So because I'm in a demo system, the host name that is available to me is rs1-IPv4 and IPv6. I don't actually have any domain names like .management.inx.ie or anything like that. So that might actually cause me a little bit of trouble in a second, but let me just get this first bit done. So the naming scheme here is straight out of the documentation, right? Straight out of documentation. So if you just read this, it explains the naming scheme. So my one is rs1-IPv4.env. Then I want to edit that. The main thing I need to change in here is the command that I use to query Bird. So we use a wrapper script. Now I've installed Bird into /serve/Birdseye. So what I'm going to do is just copy this, just comment out to default so that we can refer to it again in a second. My path is /serve/Birdseye bin birdc. When you read the documentation, and again this is all covered here. See, we've got documentation all around this, and to support Bird 2, use the -2 switch. So I've got -6, switch that to -2, and I need a socket. All right, how do I know my socket? Well, do a ps and grep for Bird, and there's my IPv4 socket right here. Okay, so pop that in there. So that is that command. I don't need to change anything else in here right now. This will work out of the box. The one thing I'm going to change is I'm going to turn on the looking glass. So IXP Manager has its own looking glass, and it queries Birdseye's API to display the results. But Birdseye itself has a looking glass as well, which is normally turned off because we typically expect people to query it by the API rather than a web front end. I'm going to turn it on so that we can have a look at it. Okay, so that's my configuration done there. Okay, and yes, so the next thing I need to do is the web server needs to be able to access that file. Now, so if we have another look, just go back in here. We configured the birdc command with sudo to run this file here. If we have a look at that file, what this file does, it's a wrapper. It's a birdc wrapper for Birdseye, and what I mean by a wrapper is it runs the command with -or. So this is all security in mind. It means that it's read only. So even if there's a coding mistake in the Birdseye front end, the commands that get sent to Bird are sent with the -or switch so that they're read only, irrespective of any coding error there. So what I need to do is I need to tell sudo that we should be allowed to run that. So I'm going to just create this file here, Birdseye. And in that file, just going to take it from here. I'm going to allow the web server to run that command. Now, there's one small problem, which is it's absolutely not related to it's not a problem, but it's because of my platform here. Like if I do a ping rs1-IPv4, that will work because I've put that in my hosts, and the same for IPv6, right? But that's a cheat because normally you'd expect it to be something, with a domain name, for example, but I don't have that here. So I just discovered in my own testing that I just need to change one part of Birdseye to make that work, and that is this bit here. So let me just drop in just an extra line here. So you don't need to worry about that. That's just for me, just for my development platform. If you have a proper host name like rs1-IPv4.management.ixp.example.com, for example, this will work absolutely fine. The last thing I want to do before we move on is Birdseye, as I said, it's a ton of security in mind, including caching. Every result is cached for a period of time so that even if a client or a user keeps hitting the looking glass, you're going to get the same result until the cache expires. That's fine for your front end, but for IXP Manager, I want to, if I'm logged in as an admin user, I want to get the real information without getting the cached version. And I can do that. There's a little command here. Sorry, there's a little file here. Skip cache ips.php.dist. I'm going to copy that, lose the .dist, and again, this is all in the documentation on that README file. So I'm going to put in the IP address of my IXP manager on my development system. There we go. So that means that I should skip that cache. I think, unless I'm missing something, I think that should be working. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's test if the built-in looking glass is working before we look at this through IXP Manager. So I told you that was my URL here, and excellent. So our built-in looking glass is working. I can look at it here, and I can see my 3 clients. I can see I'm learning 55 routes from AS1213, 5 from AS44451, and 7 from 49567. And I'm exporting routes to each of those as well. So I can see that my built-in looking glass is working. How about my IXP Manager looking glass? So if you remember on the routers, when I set them up, I said to IXP Manager, I said that the API will be Birdseye, and this will be the endpoint for the API. All right, and that it was public access. What that means, the public access, is it means that even if I wasn't logged into IXP Manager, I could go and look at, I could go and look at the looking glass. So it would be publicly accessible. I can change that so that only logged in users can look at it, but in general, we set that up to be publicly accessible. So IXP Manager is generating these 2 looking glass interfaces because we configured them in the router. Let's see if we can actually access them. And lo and behold, we can, which is brilliant. So we're now seeing in our looking glass, Bird version 2.07 is up and running. The router ID is here. We can see when it was last reconfigured. There's some JSON stuff that we can get directly, and then we can see our 3 peers up and running. So that's our looking glass, which is fantastic. Let's just take a look at 1 or 2 things here. If we take a look at some prefixes from this network, let's just look at the details. Okay, so we've learned this prefix. Now remember all of this tagging that we were doing. We were tagging the routes with informational tags and filtered tags. What all of that was allowing us to do was show these informational things. So we can see that RPKI was not checked. IORDB was not checked. So we can see those by looking at this. And that all makes sense because we didn't check RPKI and we didn't check IORDB. We haven't done those things yet. So that all makes sense to us so far. So now what we want to do is we want to, well, actually, tell you what we'll do. IPv6 not working, okay, because we haven't configured it. So let's pop back to our Birdseye. Let's just copy Birdseye rs IPv1. So it's, it's looking for a config.m file, rs1-IPv6. Let's create it. Now, what do we need to edit in there to make it work for IPv6? The only thing I think we have to change, unless I'm not mistaken, is the socket, because everything else with Bird 2 is the same. So let's check. Excellent. There's our socket. Now what I want to do is I want to just show you some, this is IPv6 by the way, so there's much less prefixes. I want to show you some community filtering. So let's go on to one of my clients here. Okay, so I'm in one client here. Let's go into Bird 6. Yeah, I've set it up here. Okay. So in Bird 6, for this client, AS1213, what I'm doing is, it's a very simple Bird config file, very much a skeleton one. Again, I've just defined 3 null routes, and what I'm saying is export to the root server where the protocol is those static routes. Now, so when we look at AS and we look at the received prefixes, there's our 3 prefixes coming right out of here. Okay. There's no large communities except the two that we already know about, RPKI and ORDB not checked. And before I move on, actually, let me also just open up on a new page. Let me look at what those routes look like as we send them to whom? 496 to Aptus. Okay. So as we send them, AS path, just single AS number for all of the routes that we're sending to Aptus. Okay, so that's our outbound to Aptus, routes exported to Aptus, routes imported from HGANet. All right. I'm going to swap around my pre-prepared export filter here. I'm going to use a new filter, and what I'm going to say is export anything that comes from the static BGP protocol, but before you send them off, add this large community. If we remember, root server AS 65501, 103 means prepend 3 times to AS 59567. So that's what we're saying. What we're saying is before you send it to 59567, prepend my AS 3 times. So sure root. Okay, so I'm going to reconfigure Bird, and let's see what effect that has. So this is looking at the routes as I've learned them from AS 1213. No change, but if we look at this, I thought I would have seen a large community here. Did I make a mistake? Oh, yeah, no, I'm in Bird C6. Okay, I'm not sure what I missed there, but you can see it now. Oh, it's, let's see. It's not on all the routes for some reason. Did I do something strange? 48, 48, 48. All right, there's some kind of bug here, and I'm not going to figure it out now. You can see that there's 3 large communities, 3 large communities, 3 large communities. For some reason, it's not showing here because there's a missing large community, but that's fine. Let's use this one. You can see my BGP large communities. I've now got this extra community, just as I defined it, and that means prepend to peer AS 3 times. So there's no difference in terms of what we've got coming in. And if we go back home, there should be no difference to what we're sending SkyTel. Okay, SkyTel exact same as it always was. However, there should be a difference to what we're sending Aptus. And there's our difference. We have prepended the AS 1, 2, 3 times. So if I go and remove, if I go and in fact, you know, I can just comment that out, just make it, I don't need to swap around the filters. Just remove that, reconfigure, pop back, reload, back to normal. Okay, so that's our community filtering in action. One last example here, if I just pop back here, what I could do is, if you remember, to not send it was a 0. Let's reconfigure, reload. Aptus isn't getting those prefixes. And if I go back home to HGANet, the prefixes that I've received, there we have it. Oh. Sorry. I think that we have caching going on here. That's what's happening. It's not meant to be caching, but we are caching. So apologies about that. My wife wanted a quick word with me. So that was a caching problem. I'm not sure why the cache was getting in the way. I might look into that offline, but essentially we can now see 65501:0 means don't advertise to that AS number. So we can see that that is all working exactly as we want it to work. So that's our looking glass. and our look at community filtering. So that's us done on this session here. In the next one, we're going to look at root server IOR DB filtering with IXP Manager. So again, thanks for watching. Usual details here. Again, docs@ixpmanager.org, best place to look to find out more details on this. Hit me up on Barry079 on Twitter, and my email address barry.o'donovan@inext.ie. Thanks for watching.